Hey everybody, Reefgrrl here. Before I get into the video, I'd like to shout out a new channel I just found called Holla Atcha Reef Boy. This guy's really upbeat, high energy, and he's showing us the build of a Red Sea Peninsula 650. I watched his first couple of videos. He's a very new channel with around 65 to 70 subscribers, and I subbed right away because I really appreciate his upbeat positivity, and it looks like he's got some super interesting ideas that everybody might be interested in. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below if you want to check it out. I highly recommend it. Here's a brief update on the tank near crash. I'm calling it a near crash because I don't believe it's completely crashed. I don't have a lot of death, a little bit. What I have is a lot of stress, and that includes me. The worst hit have been the Euphyllia, I think, and the Acropora. This is the octospawn. Under UV light, I do have a small UV flashlight that I've had for years. There is a lot of color in here, right in the very middle. I don't believe it's dead. I haven't seen polyp bail out, so we'll see. Equally, the hammer. Pretty much the same circumstances, although a couple of the heads on this look like they are bleaching. Those two are the worst of the LPS corals. When it comes to SPS, I'll be lucky if I have 3 survive of the 8 or so that I had left after the September crash. So the fox flame on the left there, losing a bit of tissue up front, but other than that, it's hanging in there. And this is the cherry blossom. It has a couple spots of lost tissue, but there is still lots of brown, which is still lots of live tissue. And this little thing right here, which is quite pretty. It's a beautiful blue-green when it's doing well. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that my regimen of daily water changes of anywhere from 10 to 12 gallons, plus I've just again started fluffing the sand to try and get stuff up into the water column for 2 reasons. To help feed the corals, because I had been trying to give them turbid water at least every couple of days. That was more for the torches, but overall I think it helped. And secondly, to pick up whatever organic stuff should go down over the overflow to get skimmed out, to keep things clean. After each water change, I've been doing parameter checks and nothing is out of line. The last alkalinity was 8, calcium was 470, magnesium 1470, phosphates 0.14, nitrates 10. So that has been the case throughout the week. They may vary up and down slightly, but really not much. The Pectinia, every time I look at it, I really don't know if it's going to survive or not. Under UV, there is a lot of green tissue still on here, and I do see tiny nubs of tentacles trying to come out. So that one, if I can maintain the stable water conditions, I may be lucky enough to get some of it back. I'm not holding my breath though. This frog spawn back here, under blue light, there's a lot of bright yellow in there, and I know it's hard to see. It doesn't look as rough as, for example, the octospawn that's showing a lot of its septae. So overall, I believe things have stabilized. I have no idea how long it's going to take for that stability to allow things to recover. And that's just going to be a question of time. I'm going to cut back on the water changes since I've done I've done 8 days in a row of daily water changes now, as of right now, which is the majority of the system moving through, which probably amounts to roughly half of the water volume completely changed out. So I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to strip the nutrients and cause other problems and too much of a shock. Success stories. Check out the bubble coral. For whatever reason, it is doing fine. It's not as big as it was, but it looks healthy. Pocillipora is coming back. buster. Doesn't get super big. He does have a huge vermeted snail right there, little back. Gonna get rid of that. But he's looking okay. Stanley the clam. Stanley kind of closed up for a couple of days and I was very worried. However, I now believe that was related to the lights because I turned off the T5s when it looked like the corals were really struggling. My thinking was too much light is going to stress them out even more when they're trying to photosynthesize and they can't. And so I shut them off totally for, probably 4 or 5 days. Then I turned them back on again a couple of days ago, starting with a 10-minute photo period and ramping up by 10 minutes per day. So right now it's on for 30 or 40 minutes. I'd have to check the timer. And Stanley immediately responded when the T5s came back. My inverts are doing great. The 2 shrimp over here, they've actually molted. The snails are all doing fine. However, I believe I may have lost my Halloween hermit crab. There's little bits of orange body there, and the Naceria snails were all over that last night. I don't think it was a molt. So I don't know whether the pistol shrimp got him. No idea. I'll keep an eye out and see if I see him again. My white-footed hermit crab is doing very well. So, you know, the Cinerina, it's hanging in there. This torch, hanging in there. Those torches, not so much. So I'm hoping getting back to fluffing the sand might help those guys a little bit. Oh, T5s just came on. The Starburst Montipora does get yellow dots, but no polyps come out. The other thing I did was I sent away an ICP test, both of this tank water and my source water that's in my RODI container. I gathered that sample on January the 28th, and that was very early on in what was going on here, so I'm hoping it'll tell me something about what was in the water that might have caused these issues. You can see my fish are quite active right now. There's been some, I don't know, chasing and aggression going on between the green wrasse and the angelfish, the male angel, Sven. And the Tomini tang, yeah, see what Sven turns on his side, and the green wrasse just kind of opens his mouth and butts him. He doesn't bite him that I've seen. Anyway, Pamela, she's been harassing the clownfish a lot, and she actually has a bite mark on her side. I don't see her. Oh, there she is. She's very, very active all over the tank, but she's been spending a lot of time in that corner back there, and they don't like it. So I'm pretty sure that bite mark on her side is from one of the clownfish. Quite possibly the male. It seems to be more territorial than the female at this point. It's fascinating watching these guys. They really get into it when they're active during the day. The other coral that seems to be coming back is the Duncan. It's quite a lot more open today than it's been in well over a week. It really struggled for the first day or two, and then it just closed up tight. Oh, there's Pamela. Let's see if we can capture her bite mark. Her tail is also ragged. It looks like a chunk got taken out of it. But I'm not worried. I mean, she seems to be fine. Staying fat, always picking at the rocks. I really like that fish. All right, a bit of a diversion. So that's the update. I really can only just watch now, continue the maintenance, continue the testing, make sure nothing gets out of whack, because here's the thing. I have already reduced my alkalinity dose by about 15% of what it was. Because, of course, if the corals aren't taking up the alkalinity because they're stressed, I'm not going to keep dumping it into my tank. I learned that in the September crash. As of the last test, the calcium was doing okay, 470, but that's a trend up. just like the alkalinity has been. So I'm staying right on top of that. I don't want it to go any higher, so I'm tweaking the doses so that doesn't happen. The other thing I'm doing is staying on top of my sump maintenance and trying to avoid detritus collecting on the bottom and in the matrix. Yep, that's algae. It is bryopsis, as I think I mentioned in the last video, and I am going to be treating the tank with fluconazole because I don't want it to take hold. I can show you a couple of really dandy spots. Check that out. Yeah, there's a lot of patches like that. However, interestingly enough, this is what I think I showed on that video, and it's almost gone. I don't know why, but I don't want it to come back. So yes, fluconazole, but only when I feel the tank is stable. The last thing I want to do is hit this system with something else. I know that there have been no negative effects reported by people, but I think it's prudent to just wait a couple of weeks. The bryopsis isn't going anywhere. If I see a sudden explosion of little tufts popping up everywhere, oh yeah, I'll be all over it. But for now, I'm gonna wait and see. This little Tunzi 6020 has a deflector on the bottom, and that's what I've been using to blow around the bottom to keep anything loose from settling. I periodically push it back behind the skimmer in that corner and under the bottom of the matrix rack, because that will direct it straight through to the back. And I'm going to do my best to keep that as clean as I can. So really, I guess this hasn't been that short of an update. At this point, I can now look at my tank without feeling sick to my stomach. That's happened over the last day or so. I feel very much like I've been hiding in a corner licking my wounds, because this took me completely by surprise and was devastating. I'm looking forward to the Niagara Coral Show, March 9th and 10th. And if I feel like my tank is stable enough, and if I see colors starting to come back on the couple of acros I have left, I may even buy myself something to bring home. I'm hoping my torches are still good by then. If they're not, perhaps I'll buy a replacement torch. But it's too soon to really tell. I don't want to waste any more money on stuff that might die the minute it hits the water, so that will remain to be seen. And finally, I really appreciate all the positive support that you guys have given me in comments in various places around YouTube. I know I disabled comments for that crash video, and that was because I was not prepared to deal with them. I think if you read the description there, you'll get a little bit more detail about that. But finally now, I feel like I can handle a little bit more, so we'll see what happens. This has been a real shock to my system, and I'm not going to walk away from it. I'm not going to give up the hobby. We'll see what happens from here on in. Okay, here is your bonus for sticking around to the end of the video. Hebe and Jebao and Geronimo went missing for probably 6 weeks. So on top of the tank crash, I was seriously concerned about them as well. And lo and behold, just last night, they popped up again. There's one, I don't know which one it is. Let's call it Hebe. And then Jebao is under the archway here in the junkyard, helping Geronimo. And just check that out, moving rocks. It's pretty amazing. And this is why we keep reef tanks, because we get to see stuff like this. Not many people get to do this. And I feel really, really privileged and lucky that I happened to notice it last night, and I happened to grab my camera, and I happened to be able to capture it.